These have been a work in progress now for maybe 5-ish years. I started when I was, the idea sort of came to me when I was just creating some portfolio pieces for my portfolio, and there was a art contest with the Dallas, the International Dyslexia Association Dallas branch. And I forget what the prompt was, but of course it was something related to dyslexia. And I had a friend who challenged me to draw my dyslexia as a character. He thought that would be interesting. So I credit him with giving me the spark that led to the full idea. But I drew a little illustration of Molly and Lexi, and from there, I started to think about what this relationship was and what my own relationship was to my dyslexia, and how I relate to her. I think, now that I've got Lexi as a character, she's got a gender, she's a her, and how that relationship has really changed for me over the years. When I when I was like coming out of adolescence, I didn't feel very positive about my dyslexia, and I went on a whole entire journey, and I made a short film about it. I did a lot of research in grad school about it and became really familiar with the topic. And I'm just really excited to give something back to this community, especially for the young children who need it most. The short film I made I think is more valuable for an older audience, and it's just great to be able to tap into that younger audience now.
Wonderful. So without giving it all away, can you tell
Sure.
us a little bit about, so it comes out in 3 books,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you can buy them separately, but there's something wonderful about the evolution of them if you have them all together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They do work separately, and when I approached my publisher, Free Spirit Publishing, I had only one book in mind, and it was actually them that they came to me and said, "What do you think about a series? And what do you have some ideas for that?" And of course, you say yes to any opportunity. Of course, I didn't quite know what I would do with 3 books, but having the 3 books really allowed us the space to explore um, more about dyslexia than I would have with just one book. Um, yeah, like we said, they do work independently, but they're best as a trio. And the first book is great for parents and teachers who are just discovering that maybe their child or student has dyslexia and they're rather new to the topic, because the child can move through the book with the main character who is also discovering that she's dyslexic. So she's in the first book, she does get diagnosed, which is actually that's a common theme for some older picture books about dyslexia. I've noticed, showing the child becoming recognized as being different, and then a teacher usually comes in and helps them become diagnosed. And even though we wanted to cover that diagnosed story, we also wanted to do something different with it. And I'd been talking to my mom about my dyslexia, and she always would remark about how when I was a kid, I never really had trouble asking for help. I always was really kind of loud about it. And like I actually found a school record recently when I was visiting my parents that said something like, it was like some feedback from my teacher, and it was like Krista's eagerness to participate and contribute is getting in the way of other students, and we need to work on her like interrupting people.
Oh,
So,
ouch.
like I didn't have trouble with this self-advocacy portion of it. I wanted to address that in my books. So first book, we focus on self-advocacy and learning how to ask for
Great.
help, and that it's okay to ask for help, and how you can do that. Uh, in the second book, we're addressing something also personal uh, to me. When I was a kid, I my dyslexia was kind of exposed to a classroom full of students, and I had some kids on the playground that had a lot of questions, and I didn't know how to answer them. So I thought this would be a great book this would be great to create a book that helps children with that language. If I want to share with my classmates about my dyslexia or about my learning difference, how can I talk about that in a positive manner, but also a truthful manner? So the second book is called Molly Tells the World. And that's actually, of the 3, that's my favorite one. Um, and yeah, again, it's just about that relationship we have with our dyslexia. So Molly doesn't always feel positive towards her dyslexia. She at times they are not getting along, and ultimately they do get along, but
I just think it's such a powerful language to have. I mean, it makes me think about that missing piece that so often Brock and I were on the side of, you know, giving the diagnosis or whatever and telling the parents and it was important, but then, then you're off, then you've got to navigate this could be like a minefield with a teacher. You're asking too many questions or it's distracting me, or your classmates, are they going to feel differently when I tell them, or I mean, all these kinds of things. You're on your own, but that's really tough. That's
It's
really
tough.
tough.
It's tough, and it's a difficult thing for, I think, children to grasp and understand about themselves. It's a difficult for adults to grasp and understand about
It's
themselves.
true.
How
It's
can
true.
you communicate at that age the full scope of something that is so complex?
Yeah. But what a
Yeah.
perfect thing too to just, especially when it gets difficult, if you can see, another character went through the same thing and you think, that's what I want to do, then it,
Mhm.
it just makes it so much easier because, chances are most parents haven't navigated in that kind of detail what
Yeah.
it's like to be for you. And, to tell you the truth too, I mean, I've always felt like we had yeah, a real close relationship with our kids, but they took, when they were in college, they took some class about children in the media.
Hmm.
And they said, was there ever something that you saw or watched that kind of bothered you, but you didn't want to tell your parents? And
Yeah.
both of them said, yes. It's like, why would you? But you wouldn't, you just wouldn't. There's so much that's kind of hard to put into words. There's so much that it's hard to process. And, if you just say, how was your day at school? You just might hear fine, you know what I mean? But you're not at all kind of tapping into that. So it's kind of a nice thing to slip in. I would imagine the school library is a great thing too, because, people come across it and they think, you know what? you know even it could be them, number one, and they feel this difference and may not even been tested, so, but it also could be like, I heard this and I have no idea what that means, and so I think it's a nice way to kind of introduce things, because I've heard about teachers really wanting to be more, have special um, activities that talk about differences, and this is a great way to kind of bring that in.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And um, in our book, we also I say we because I worked with a publisher, and it's such a collaboration. It feels so weird that just I mean, everybody's names are in there, but it feels weird. I feel like I had a lot of co-authors on this project. Anyway, but what were we talking about? Yeah,
yeah,
and
well, just the fact that
it
this
could be
is it
used
could,
in
yeah.
it could be used in a classroom. Yeah, see, there's the interrupting thing. It's the impulse control issue. Uh, we took some care to put some really great information in the back of the book, because we had this thought that this would be great in a classroom, and so it's sort of serves as a teaching tool. I look at it like that. So we've got in behind or in the back of every book, we have some additional information um,
Great.
that would help a teacher in the classroom kind of
Yeah,
talk.
super. That's super. Yeah,
Um,
and I it's funny, like when Philip Schultz, who and his wife Monica Banks, who worked with us on this in the Karina ID Young Writers Awards, he said what was really important for him. I got the feeling he was maybe in, I mean, if middle school or high school even, where he found that making personas were really helpful. And I think
hmm,
personalizing your dyslexia is a really helpful thing, right? I mean, and this kind of it, because it gives you some way, because sometimes it's just too much. Like it's me, but actually being able to make this, like a friend or someone you're fighting with or something like that, it's just a great way to put it for kids, because
yeah.
it doesn't seem to be, sometimes, especially if you're warring, you don't really even want to be the same person. But at other times too, like you said, it might have been much later before you really love it. And it's the nature
Mm.
of the dilemma with dyslexia, because it's really late blooming, and you really get, things get easier and easier. Your creative abilities are just so much more in command later on, but in the beginning it just seems like you're on the short end of the stick so often. And, I think that just seems so healthy, being able to, because some people, you might say, when you just, hate it, well, it's taking me longer, right? And I have to go and pull out classes. It just seems like all this negative stuff, I mean, if you say that, sometimes people will kind of shut you down and say, don't do that. You can't do that. You got to be fun. But it is that kind of complexity, and a little bit of distancing
Mhm.
might really help people young people at that point, I think. I mean,
I
maybe other people too.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Yeah, I think I was also frustrated as a kid being given this dyslexia as a superpower kind of thing. Like I understand it and it is good. I think this like saying it's a gift and it's whatever. But oh, sorry, that's my dog. But nobody could explain exactly what that meant. And I think that was the disconnect for me was adults around me kind of not all adults, but like some adults insisting that it was a positive thing when it's like, I don't understand how this is positive because everything I'm experiencing is so negative. But that's what I really loved about when I found your book was that it really did explain that for me. And yeah, it's
And
like
that comes out, is that right? That comes out at the last one, is that right? Or do you talk about,
oh, the
she
strength.
discovers, right? She starts
Yeah,
liking it, right?
yeah. So in the well, she likes it throughout, but yeah, she does have a moment in book two. But book three is Molly Finds a Way. And this one is all about personal strengths. The actually the one that I had originally pitched for this, it it was like it happened in within the school day and there was a big art fair and Molly and Lexi were running around and solving problems
Oh,
and just using those dyslexic strengths. But my publisher was like, we like this concept, but we need to do a book outside of the school. So can we do it? Can you possibly like transpose this onto a different plot that's somewhere else? And so the second book takes place at Molly's house, and her friend Leanne is coming over for a play date. And the play date doesn't go. It goes well at the beginning, but then it rains, and then they have to solve the different problems that they see. So it's supposed to be a celebration of dyslexic strengths, just kind of a positive, really positive book. There's no huge, like I don't know, like sinking sad point or something in this book. This one is just all kind of fun and about those strengths. So, and then something else I really loved about our series was that we were able to include two dyslexic characters. So her friend Leanne comes in the second book, and she is also dyslexic. And I chose to represent dyslexia differently. She
that's a
looks
cool idea. I love it. I
Looks
love it.
different. Like it's hers Leanne's dyslexia is called Izzy and then Molly's is called Lexi, and they each kind of represent the differences in the children that they belong to.
Another cool idea. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Now some people might be curious about how did you actually pitch it? Was it just an email or was there a call?
Well, it was years of writing and rewriting and drafting and submitting to publishers and getting a lot of rejections, getting a lot of feedback that would steer me away from the personified dyslexia concept. I had a lot of feedback that was from people who might not have understood what I was kind of going for. I think, yeah, anyway, when I first found the publisher, it was actually a Twitter pitch contest. So like in children's publishing, there will be these pitch contests where it's like hashtag PB pitch, like picture book pitch. And you
Yeah.
look them up online and figure out what dates they are, but they're just these Twitter pitches days where people send like a couple, sentences in their Twitter about what the or X, whatever it's called now. They send like the
Yeah, that's right.
synopsis of what the book is, and then publishers can get on there and like and heart. And if you get a like or a heart from a editor or publisher, they're basically saying, I want to see this work.
Right.
So in publishing, you do typically need a literary agent to approach publishers, and I didn't have a literary agent, so there's also ways to get in without a literary agent, but that you won't be able to pitch to those bigger publishers. The one that I did end up finding, I know that they have many authors that are represented, but then they also have authors that are not, like myself.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great. They're an educational publisher, so their focus is like social emotional development, and they're also attached to like a bigger curriculum organization that like they publish a lot of curriculum, and they work with a lot of teachers. So I think I was one of the rarer cases of somebody who was going to write and also illustrate the book. So they typically will work with an author, and then they have an illustrator who's separate. So
So yeah, great.
yeah. So if you're an educator out there and you want to write some books, go look up Free Spirit Publishing.
Yeah, I think we bought some. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, Free Spirit Press is wonderful. Great series of books. Well, fantastic. Do you have any closing bits of advice to young people and maybe parents and teachers?
Ooh, closing bits of advice. I think I think this is some random advice that I give myself a lot, because sometimes if I get an idea, I'll get in my head about it and I think, oh, I can't do that. Or if, that person's going to say no, or, oh, I shouldn't go for that job, I'm not quite qualified, or something like that. And I think the general advice I try to give myself is let them tell you no, try it and go for it. And they let them be the ones to tell you no or yes. Like, you don't need to worry about the no or yes. You're just worried about getting your work out there and getting, I don't know, just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, well, you seem awfully resilient. And do you think that was just that's something that just came about over time and do
Yeah,
you have any goal?
I think it has come out about over time, but I think there's an awful lot of internal coaching of myself that has to go on.
You.
In publishing, there's a lot of you get a lot of rejections, and it it doesn't feel great. And I think I've gotten good at dealing with it and tricking myself into to believing that it's gonna all work out. And it has worked out. So
Yeah, well, it seems like
I'm
it
on my
does.
way.
We haven't sort of gotten to your other hats and things like that, but you've had a long history in
Mhm.
animation, animatronics and things like that, and puppetry. So,
Yeah,
you
I
are
can't
multimedia,
I
a
cannot calm
storyteller.
down. I like to
Fantastic.
feel a lot, but
All right. Well, thanks so much.